Baby boomers on fixed incomes, I'm talking to you. Are you worried about your retirement yet? Well, you should be, because I sure am. Now, outside of the fake news the Trump administration spews out every day, I want to tell you that America is in trouble. We are on the verge of an oil catastrophe. Here's a number for you: 365 million barrels. That's what's left in our Strategic Petroleum Reserves. That is what stands between you and a full-blown energy crisis this summer. 365 million barrels. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Here's the problem. The United States burns 20 million barrels of oil every single day. Let that sink in. That's 18 days of supply. 18 days. And we're selling a lot of oil to Europe, who needs it worse than we do. That's not a reserve. That's a ticking time bomb that is running toward zero. Now here's what the Trump administration avoids telling you. They have been spinning this like a top. Now the Strait of Hormuz, and I've talked about this on other videos, the waterway that carries 20% of the world's entire oil supply, has been closed for over 104 days. 20% of all the oil on the planet locked out. Now, to be fair to this analysis, the Iranians have let some oil tankers pass through the strait. But Trump's secondary blockade has reduced that number yet again. Also, the Chinese have helped cushion oil prices by reducing their own domestic oil imports by 241 million barrels. That's the lowest level since 2017. Now, this reduced demand has prevented global benchmark oil prices from surging and staying past $100 a barrel. But all of this is a temporary fix, just delaying the inevitable. Here in the U.S., a desperate Donald Trump has only one way to control oil prices. He's using the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, our emergency stockpile, our last line of defense. They've been pulling 9 to 10 million barrels out of it every single week. Let's do the math here. You need to hear this. First of all, we have 365 million barrels in reserve, and we have about 3 weeks left in June, give or take a few days. We're drawing 10 billion barrels a week from the reserve. Let's do the math. At this pace, we drop below 335 million barrels by July. Do you remember the last time we were at these levels? That was the early 1980s. Back then, America consumed a fraction of what it does today. Now, this isn't a warning. The warning was issued by oil experts months ago. Nobody seemed to care. No, this is now a countdown. Stay with me here, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly what happens next and exactly what to watch for. Now, if you want to stay ahead of the curve on the global economic shifts and political power plays that actually affect your wallet and your future, you need to be part of this community. Don't let the mainstream media dictate your narrative. Hit like and subscribe to Clear Signal, and share these videos with someone who needs to see the real data. Join us today. Ring that notification bell and help us build a community of sharp, informed citizens who refuse to be left in the dark. Okay, let's start with the evidence, because the story did not begin in Iran. It began in January 2021. That month, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve held 638 million barrels, fully stocked, designed for exactly the kind of emergency we are living through right now. Then Biden happened. After Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Biden drained more than 200 million barrels from the reserve. The stated reason? To hold gas prices down before the midterm elections. By July 2023, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the SPR, hit a 40-year low. 347 million barrels. Gone. Then Donald Trump ran for president. He had one specific promise about this reserve. Quote, "We're going to fill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve right to the top." His words, his promise. Fast forward, March 11th, 2026. Iran shuts the Strait of Hormuz. Global oil prices explode. West Texas Intermediate crude spikes to $114 a barrel on April 7th, up from just $70 1 year earlier. And what does the Trump administration do? Do you want to guess? They announced the largest coordinated emergency reserve release in history, 172 million barrels from the United States alone, part of a 400 million barrel release coordinated with the International Energy Agency, 32 countries acting in concert. He didn't refill it. No, he drained it faster than Biden ever did. Back-to-back record weekly releases in May. 8.6 million barrels in 1 week, then 9.92 million barrels the next. That second number, 9.92 million barrels released in a single week, that is the largest single-week SPR drain in American history. This is what desperation looks like in a spreadsheet. Today, the reserve sits at 365 million barrels. That is half, exactly half, of its December 2009 peak of 726 million barrels. Now here's the detail that should make you stop cold. About half of those released barrels are not going to American refineries. No, they're not. They are being exported to Asia, to Europe. The United States has become, and I'm quoting here Matt Smith, lead oil analyst at energy intelligence firm Kepler, quote, the supplier of last resort. The rest of the world needs that crude. I want you to sit with that for a moment. We drained our emergency stockpiles and sent half of it overseas. Now let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz, because most Americans have no idea what this choke point actually means. I've talked about this on other videos, but I'm going to go over it again. The strait is a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman. At its narrowest point, 21 miles wide. 21 miles. Through that 21-mile gap flows 20% of the world's entire oil supply. Every supertanker leaving Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, they all pass through that 21 miles. Then the U.S. and Israel attack Iran. Then Iran shuts it down. That was late February 2026. Since then, according to S&P Global Energy, more than 1.2 billion barrels of crude have been derailed, trapped, unable to reach global markets. Persian Gulf producers have been forced to cut production by roughly 6% because their local storage is full. There is physically nowhere for the oil to go. And what does that do to the global economy? The OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, issued a formal warning. Prolonged energy disruption from this war could trigger a global recession, not a slowdown, a recession. Some have said that it could end up being a depression. Now, we're on day 104 of that disruption. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. David, doesn't the U.S. produce its own oil? Aren't we energy independent? Fair question. Let me answer it directly. Yes, America produces roughly 13 million barrels of oil per day. The problem is we consume 20 million. That 7 million barrel gap is imported oil. Every country that used to buy Middle Eastern oil through the Strait of Hormuz is now competing with us for the same replacement sources. Oil is priced globally. When 20% of global supply disappears, your gas price goes up. Period. It doesn't matter where your specific barrel came from. The market doesn't care about your zip code. Now here's where the evidence gets damning for the Trump administration. This was not a surprise. Every energy analyst, every geopolitical strategist, every person who has ever looked at a map of the Middle East knew the Strait of Hormuz was the single most vulnerable checkpoint in the global energy system. It has been on the Department of Defense threat matrix for 40 years. 40 years. And in those 40 years, here's what 2 consecutive administrations did to prepare for this moment. They drained the reserve. Biden, 200 million barrels. Trump, 172 million barrels as of right now. Combined, the United States released over 370 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve since January of 2021. This is more than half of its total design capacity. Sold. Many of those barrels exported overseas. And here's the number that should make you genuinely angry. The Biden administration sold those barrels at an average price of $75 per barrel. Today, West Texas Intermediate crude trades near $95. It spiked above $114 in April. They sold your energy oil cheap. They sold your emergency oil cheap. The market now wants it back at $20 to $40 more per barrel. This is not just incompetence. This is a systemic failure of stewardship across two administrations. 4 years, both parties. They stole our emergency reserves and sold it at a loss. And remember, around 40% of the oil we produce is exported overseas. Now, the refill problem. Matt Smith at Kepler said it plainly, and I quote, "This isn't like a cookie jar. Those barrels have got to be put back at some point, and that will lead to higher prices." Think about what that actually means. To refill the SPR, the government has to buy oil on the open market. Right now, oil is at $95 a barrel. They don't want to have to buy it at $95 per barrel when they sold it at $75. The political optics are terrible. So they wait. While they wait, the price could go even higher. And here is the signal nobody is saying out loud. When the refill does happen, whenever that is, it increases global demand, which pushes the prices higher again. The consumer pays twice. You heard me right. You pay twice. Once on the way down and once on the way back up. This is not an accident. This is a structural design flaw they built into the system, and they never fixed it, and probably never will. So let's talk about what might happen in July. Here's what the evidence says is coming. Signal 1, the summer demand spike. Now, every summer, as you know, American driving increases. Road trips and vacations. Air conditioning loads on the power grid increase. That demand increase is baked in. It happens regardless of war, regardless of the reserve levels. This summer, it collides with a depleted oil reserve and a closed Strait of Hormuz. Helena Croft, global head of commodity strategy at RBC Capital Markets, told CNN this directly, and I quote, "Even if a deal was done tomorrow," which we know is not going to happen, "it will probably take 6 weeks to unbottleneck the strait, only adding to the pressure in inventories during peak summer demand season. 6 weeks minimum to unbottleneck after a ceasefire. We are in June. You do the math. Think about it." Signal 2, Cushing is running dry. Cushing, Oklahoma. Most of you might have never heard of it. Write it down. Cushing is America's primary domestic crude storage and pricing hub. It is where pipeline inventory is measured and where YTI crude is priced. As of late May 2026, Cushing inventories were approaching what analysts called operationally low levels. That phrase, operationally low, means the pipeline system develops functional problems. You cannot drain a tank to zero and keep the system running. There is a minimum operational volume, and we are approaching it. Now, when Cushing reaches operationally low levels, domestic refinery supply gets stressed. That stress goes directly to the pump. No lag time, no buffer. Signal 3, the consumer is already broke, especially baby boomers on fixed incomes. Here's a number that tells the whole story. Consumer sentiment in May 2026, 44.8. That's an all-time low. Donald Trump set yet another record. He should be proud of himself. Sentiment is lower than the 2008 financial crisis, lower than the COVID lockdowns, lower than any point in modern recorded history. A recent University of Michigan study revealed that 57% of Americans spontaneously cited high prices as eroding their personal finances. Now, the University of Michigan didn't prompt them to answer that way. People volunteered it. The Consumer Price Index hit 3.8% annual inflation in April of 2026. Energy prices rose 3.8% in April alone. Gasoline was up 5.4% in a single month. That 1 month of gasoline price increase accounted for 40% of the entire headline inflation number. Now let's do the boomer math. Average Social Security income approximately $20,016 per year. The average American household uses roughly 480 gallons of gasoline per year at $4.50 a gallon, which is conservative given current trajectory. That is $2,160. That is a 10.8% of a fixed annual income consumed at the pump. If prices reach $5.50 this summer, which analysts are not ruling out during peak demand, that number climbs to $2,640. That's 13.2% of your annual income gone before your mortgage, before groceries, before medication. They are not going to show you that math on the evening news. They will show you the price on the pump sign, and that price is deceiving. They will not do this calculation for you. This is what Clear Signal is here for. So here's what you need to know. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the one instrument designed to protect American families from exactly this kind of shock, has been politically gutted for over 4 years. 2 administrations, both parties. The Strait of Hormuz, the choke point on every defense planner's threat matrix for 40 years, is closed. Day 104 right now. No resolution in sight. Now the American consumer entered this crisis already at a breaking point. Consumer sentiment at record lows. Inflation re-accelerating. Fixed incomes stretched to the limit. And July is coming. So watch for 3 things. Number 1, the EIA, Weekly Petroleum Status Report, released every Wednesday morning. Watch the SPR number. If weekly draws stay above 8 million barrels, we break below 350 million barrels before August. That is the red line. Below that level, the reserve has never been tested against a crisis of this size. Number 2, the Cushing inventory number in that same report. If it drops below 25 million barrels, the domestic supply chain is under genuine operational stress. Number 3, any diplomatic movement at the Strait of Hormuz. Not a ceasefire announcement, not a press release. Verified movement of tankers through the strait. Until ships are moving, every other diplomatic headline is just noise. I would also caution you against believing anything coming out of the mouth of Donald Trump. He has outright lied about an imminent settlement of this conflict at least a dozen times. It's all part of his art of the deal negotiation tactic. It doesn't work. It never did. He also uses the announcements to manipulate the oil and stock markets so he and his billionaire friends can short the market and make billions of dollars off of oil futures. Talk about greed, right? Now, for the most part, the American press believes him when he says he's close to a deal. It's like he's Lucy and they're Charlie Brown. We know she's going to pull the football away from him at the last minute and watch him fall. The press isn't too smart. Don't be like them. It seems America was thrust into a war completely unprepared, poorly planned at every level. What makes it worse is that the war is in the part of the world that produces over 30% of the world's oil supply. You'd think that the American oil reserves would have been topped off before the first bomb fell, right? Didn't happen. This is incompetence at the highest level. Just another selfish decision made by Donald Trump to enhance his legacy, to demonstrate American power under his rule. And above all else, he is enriching himself and his family as innocent people are being killed by American bombs. Now, if my analysis gave you something the mainstream media wouldn't, share it. Not for me. Share it for someone in your circle who is watching their fixed income get consumed at the pump and has no idea what is happening. That's what Loud and Clear is built for. I'm David Tomsic. Stay locked on. I'll see you next time.